attention. Just wanna be. Girl, I like the way you move. Really wanna get with you. Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show it through.
Hello and welcome to Robin Minds. My name is Hero Daniels. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon and I hope you're having a great day. These days I find myself doom scrolling on social media because every single point in time there is some content, a piece of content that is engaging me. And these days it feels like fame has become its own kind of currency. From TikTok trends to viral controversies, Everybody is chasing visibility, sometimes even when it comes to no real substance. But what's really behind this obsession with being known? Is it about validation, opportunity, or just survival in a world that rewards attention more than talent? On this edition, we'll be taking a look at the fame economy, the culture of clout, content and constant exposure. Why do people crave fame, even when it doesn't mean much sometimes? And what happens when being popular becomes more important than being purposeful? We're going to be exploring this particular topic with our guest in the studio, the founder of Happy Vibe Services, Chukwuma Eze. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Daniels.
So we're talking about the price of fame, the obsession with fame, why everybody wants to be seen. First of all, at what points should somebody be termed famous? Or at what point does somebody become famous?
From the layman's understanding, because I'm going to be speaking a lot from the perspective of a layman, it's, when a lot of eyeballs and a lot of memories can recollect you. When people say, oh, I know you from somewhere, or I know you with this, or know you for that, for anything, as long as people can recollect maybe something, maybe not a lot, but just they can see you and there's a bit of a recognition for something, seeing you somewhere. I think that's, for me, it's akin to being tagged, quote unquote, famous.
Okay, interesting. So these days, everybody seems to be pursuing social media numbers. Why is that?
Well, again, just like you said in your intro, validation. Right? A lot of people are looking for that high. Our brains are primed to, that dopamine hit, and when you, okay, I have a bit of, I have a few thousand followers, not a few thousand, I have a community of over 300,000 people, and across my pages, cumulatively, I have close to 50,000. So when you come online and you see those notifications, your phone is buzzing, this person commented, this person liked, it kind of like, triggers this dopamine hit where you feel happy, you feel loved, you feel seen, you feel appreciated for what you are. And at the end of the day, human beings, primarily just want to feel as much good, as good as they can feel. So fame offers, that's like a drug. That dopamine hit is one of the things that fame offers, and that's one of the reasons why people chase it, because not a lot of people like themselves or like their current reality. So being famous, being idealized, being pedestalized is something that gives them that feeling of, I'm something, I'm worth something,
Okay, so we're going to talk about the impact that, these have. People can just pick up their phones and create content, and then they begin to form their own communities and begin to form their own tribe. But before we talk about the impact it has on the actual community and on the general populace, what is in for them? Does attention translate to real cash?
Very interesting question. Well, in my own case, right, it's like a double-edged sword, right? It can change your life, but it can also wreck it, But it's like it's like fire. Use it well, you can cook a really good food. Use it wrongly, it can burn the whole studio down. So fame, like me, I am someone who has a way with words. I know how to write stories. I know how to talk. I know how to speak. I know how to communicate with people. I know how to share my stories in a way that I get you to feel what I felt when I was experiencing that. And that is how I started Happy Vibe Services. I've grown it, to a large community online, and we've made calls to tens of thousands of people. How did I start it? During the pandemic, I was locked in a room and I started making, writing stuff online. And I realized, people like what I did, and I formed a community around it. I started offering that community value. There was a community we were part of on Facebook, and then from there I started offering them value via calls, and people started, because they feel like they know me, because I was a bit quote unquote famous to them, they started patronizing and actually paying Naira and Kobo into my account. So for someone who started in the markets of Onitsha to now be in his room during the lockdown, during COVID-19 virus, and was making money from the comfort of his room, while my shops and my, welding workshops were locked. It translated to actual value for me. And it can actually translate to, it changed my life. I moved to Lagos, I'm building the company, I'm expanding our tentacles into many other things. So I am who I am today because I leveraged on social media. A phone, the barrier for entry, like you said, is really low. A phone, data, some pictures, put yourself in front of the camera and you can become famous. But it also has a very dark side where the constant chase for that validation can now get you involving in controversies, doing things you shouldn't do just to get that hit again, just to get engagement, and it can really derail people.
Okay, so I'm going to be very specific this time around. If you want to sort of talk about how this has affected people's personal lives, it's like there's no privacy anymore. And then, some people even sometimes lie on social media just to get the attention. A typical case would be when Blessing CEO came online and said that she was experiencing domestic abuse from her husband. And later on, a couple of posts later, she said she was doing it for the clout, that she needed to test whether she was still the queen of attention. What would you make of such a situation?
Well, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. And then again, we live in an attention, economy. The day before, you have to actually have something valuable. You have to have like a real skill that it took you years to learn, there's something you really have, value you have to offer. But today, as long as you have anything, a story, gist, a lie that you can use to grab attention, you are good to go. So people try to grab as much attention as they can. And when they can't grab it with authentic stuff, they will try to grab it with lies so that they can, like you said, know if they are still the queen of whatever. So things like that, it's just sad to see because going to the extent of telling lies to your followers, it shows that this person is someone who's, sorry, I don't like putting my mouth into other people's business, but this is someone who's now a bit drunk or a bit addicted to that attention, and that is part of the negative sides that we're talking about. So it's sad to see, and that's just one case. There are so many cases where people come online and you leverage on social media to accuse people wrongly. Some might even just make up a story that someone did this, someone maybe sexually violated them or did this just to get people to mob violence. And then, okay, look at the story of what happened the other day on Twitter. A driver, a boat driver, an honest boat driver that was being accused of robbing people with his gang. Whereas the lady actually paid him the money, settled with it wasn't even like a robbery. She gave money to Monile or something like that. And then she went on Twitter an hour, 2 hours later and told a different story and got the attention. And then when the man now came to tell his own part of the story, the internet turned on her. The attention she wanted to get, she got it. She now had to start telling the different story. But she almost wrecked that man's life. If that man didn't come online to, make a disclaimer and tell the real side of events, his own side of events, which we later found out was what really happened, that he didn't rob them, he didn't, do anything wrong to them. That man's career, because they already blocked him from the platform. So that man's money, source of income was already blocked. So that's, again, the dark side of, people trying to be famous.
So a lot of people would say that no press is bad press, no attention is bad attention. What do you make of that?
Attention is attention, and we live in an attention community, attention economy. Right. But me personally, I do believe some press is bad press. I am a forward-thinking young Nigerian. I know that I have other things to do in the future. Right. I do not want to get attention for something bad. Oh, he's a thief. Or because these things catch up, So you say, yes, people now know you, but they know you for the wrong reasons, you know? And these things add up. The internet never forgets. So, dear viewer, there is attention that is actually bad attention. When you show up, I'm like, she be like you with a thief the other day,
Let's talk about the impact on real families and the concept of the court of public opinion. A typical case would be where you have a senator of the Federal Republic, Ned Nwoko, and one of the most recognizable faces in Nollywood, Regina Daniels. For a couple of years now, they've been the media sweethearts, wonderful, it's a fairy tale wedding, it's a fairy tale affair, it's a fairy tale marriage. And now we have a man that is saying that his wife or his estranged wife is on drugs. Regina, on the other hand, and of course, he arrested the brother, and the saga has just been ongoing.
Crazy.
And a lot of people have hot takes on this particular issue. Even Regina herself had to go online and say, yes, she admits that she has indulged herself in some drugs, but she was married at the age of 17. And so this sparked up a lot of conversations. Some people are on several sides of the divide. What do you make of such an important story that is being put out there on social media that is having real impact on this family in question? So is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Or is it also a good opportunity for people to really know what is really going on, you know, in people's personal lives? What do you make of that entire saga?
My brother, personally, I think family is sacred, you know, and even though I'm in the media space, my family is something that I'm going to try as much as possible. My kids, my family, try as much as possible to get out of the internet, because from what I've seen so far, whenever anything concerning your family that is private makes it to the internet and people are now giving hot takes on it, you know, it triggers the tribal part of our brains where the feminists are on this side, the chauvinists are on this side. It's something that once it becomes a mess online, it's something that cannot go away anymore. Something that might have been resolved by getting two people to sit down. Once one person gets dragged or two people are dragging each other, mudslinging each other on the internet, it becomes it comes to the court of public opinion. It becomes, of course, extremely messy. Social media and fame amplifies things. It can amplify it positively, it can amplify it negatively. And in this case, sorry to say, it's amplifying it negatively, where for the past few days, we've just been following negative updates. This person is saying this is this. So he's saying, yes, I'm on drugs, but all your other wives are on drugs, you know. Like the whole family, the country would definitely, and me, definitely now see them in a different light. Because a few years ago, people were like, Regina Daniels is my role model. You know, nobody will advise me for marriage again except Regina Daniels. She made the right choice. She secured the bag. Today, we are now seeing a different side of things. And we can never, once we know, we cannot unknow.
Yeah, but again, as much as we say we want to keep this things out of social media, a lot of people are also of the opinion that this young lady was a young girl. First of all, she wasn't even, according to her, because if she said she was 17 as at the time she got married, she wasn't even of legal age. So it means that she, by law, she is not supposed to make certain decisions for herself. And I mean, by law also, by law, you're getting married to somebody that is not legal, even though some parts of this country in the Sharia law, of course, that is acceptable. But globally, you know, it's not something that's acceptable. And then people are saying that this is a young girl that is crying out for help. Now, and this is the only avenue where she can cry out for help, because she doesn't have the resources, you know, to use the legal means and to use other means. So that in itself, is it a bad thing that social media avails her the opportunity to voice out being a child, you know, being a woman in this country?
Again, it's all about perspectives. Two people are fighting, right? One person has power, you know, of course, you know, offline power. This is real power in the world where they can actually leverage on their connections, you know, their relationships with the law enforcement, or, you know, in the corridors of power to actually deal with you, you know. And she has social media power, like, you know, she has fame. And again, if you're going to fight, you know, with someone, if they bring out a knife, you bring out a knife. They bring out a gun, you bring out, this is her gun. So I cannot fault her for using what she has to fight her battles, you know. What I was basically referring to then was more of the impact it's going to have, because the kids, the whole family, and the children definitely will feel the impact of this, you know, fighting back and forth. But then again, to answer your question, I do not blame Regina for fighting, because now she knows what she don't see, right? She knows what she's seen. And she's also saying that alleging that Ned actually asked her to get high because he likes her getting high before they can get intimate. You know, we are now knowing this because it would have ended at the accusation of she does drugs. But now she's saying, okay, I do it, but you made me do it, you know? And it's her own leverage, and she's using it for her battles, you know? But yeah.
All right. So now, speaking generally, I mean, we've now seen a lot of people use the social media platform to give hot takes on certain issues, and these people might not necessarily be authorities in those cases, you know. News outlets like this, you know, it's always dependable, because most often than not, you have to fact check, and there's certain processes you have to go through before you report the news. But on social media, there is no regulation, so to say. So it means that if somebody comes and say, I'm selling this product and this product can enlarge a part of your body, people take their word for it and they go ahead to purchase those products. So what do you make of such situations whereby people use their numbers to give takes or, you know, make certain recommendations, even though they are not supposed to be authorities in that particular field?
Again, double-edged sword. Fame, social media, it can help create a lot of change. There are people who have been able to actually change the world and change the lives of people, leveraging on social media, starting movements. You know, they start by just, you know, an outrage, and then it snowballs into a movement. But the dark side is also, just like in China, I read an article that said there are certain people who are not allowed to, talk on any subject again unless they are graduates in that subject. You can't just come and start talking about, you know, health if you didn't, you know, study something. You are a graduate and you have a degree in health, because a lot of people, especially in a country like this where people are looking for a means to make it, can just jump on social media and say, I will enlarge this thing without NAFTA registration, without anything. And that's the danger. And people are gullible, you know, because once you see someone, you've known this person on social media for a year, for this, you trust them, and then you send your money across to them. You know, that's how people get into Ponzi schemes. That's how people, because they feel a kind of connection, a kind of trust. This is someone you see on your screen. You don't know them, but it feels like you know them. You know, so it's terrible. But I just hope going forward, you know, our government agencies can also put things in place to just make sure that people who are talking about things on social media at least have an idea of the things they are talking about. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Chukwumeze, the founder, Happy Vibes Services.
All right. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. And yes, make sure you use social media positively. Robin Mind continues after this break. Stay with us.
I like the way you move, really wanna get with you. Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show and prove me some reaction.
Welcome back. This is Robin Minds. Before we went on the break, we're talking about the price of fame. And now let's talk about the economy and the impact that the proposed 15% tariff will be having. If we take a closer look at the federal government's proposed 15% tariff on imported fuel, this is a move that has sparked fresh debates about the cost of living, inflation, and Nigeria's energy future. Now, supporters say that the tariff could protect local refineries and encourage domestic production, especially as the country pushes for energy independence. But critics warn that it might actually drive up the fuel prices, worsen inflation, and hit transport, manufacturing, and everyday Nigerians hard. We're going to unpack what this means for the economy, the local refineries, and the average citizen. And the big question is this policy a step towards sustainability, or is just another burden on Nigerians already struggling with rising costs? To discuss this virtually with me is an economist, Gospel Obele. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. So let's get straight into it. We are in a situation whereby everybody is trying to make sure that the cost of living goes down. What is the implication of this new tariff on the economy?
Thank you very much for the question, and big thank you to Robbie Minds for the opportunity to be here again. It's interestingly, broadly, in context of how the world is evolving now, that tariffs have become an economic tool people now, or governments significantly now use to sort of gaining quote unquote economic justice around trade. So governments are seeking to gain edges around what they want to trade on, what they want to allow in, at how much, at what price, and all of that. But then again, it's in itself a lovely economic tool to use to moderate things. But when you don't have the necessary structures available, in your local economy to scale, in this case now, the oil refining, or have more refineries that are churning out oil production and all of that, it might be a bit counterproductive in context. Now, on one side of things, it's a brilliant or safely to say considerate policy to have, because you're trying to grow local production, local refining of oil and all that. And many of the oil producers and the likes are constantly struggling, trying to find a local market that they can scale with, by virtue of the fact that there is a huge level of imported fuel products or end user products coming into the country. But on the flip side of things, if you don't have the necessary infrastructure, if you're unable to scale distribution, if you're unable to channel energy correctly into homes at ease, all right, placing or putting trade restrictive measures like increased tariffs, in this case now, might be counterproductive on the average Nigerian.
Yeah.
Whilst it's good to have policy, I think to a very large extent it could be counterproductive, particularly if it's not rolled out correctly, and particularly if we're not taking into consideration the increasing informal and demand side economy for end user food.
Okay, let's talk about the practicality of things. Currently, there is only one local refinery that we know is churning out products. The NNPC has tried several years with billions of dollars being put into, reviving the refineries, and nothing has still happened till now. Dangote seems to be the only local player currently, and he has assured that there will be enough production to service the local demand. Now, do you think Dangote will be able to live up to that expectation? And also, what are your thoughts on people's perception of monopoly?
Yeah, fantastic question. I mean, Dangote himself has done a good job with setting up a refinery and trying to lead private sector effort in a space that has been long talked about, and a sector that has really required revamping and all that. But my own simple opinion, I do not think that the future of energy production, the future of meeting our home usage or domestic demand for oil wood should be hinged on one party only. I think that there is a whole lot more if the market is open for several other players to come in. Now, it might not necessarily mean everybody needs to set up refineries, but the big catch would now be, how do you ensure that you have more significant strategic players along the value chain to ensure that we are accurately meeting local demand? I do not think, at the same time, that the Nigerian Oil Producer Association and stakeholders at that supply chain level have enough accurate data to estimate what local demand is. Take, for instance, the average home, in Nigeria currently consumes at least 25 liters of fuel per week. Think about that, per week. And now, take into consideration the average home, you could have an entrepreneur in that home, you could have normal household, and so if you trickle the impact of what an average home may be spending in terms of multiply effect consumption on fuel demand alone per week, it could be way much more than ×3 or ×4 of that 25 liters in the context. So I do not think that we've had enough data metrics to correctly measure or capture what the Nigerian demand for fuel consumption is. As such, I do not also, in all full sense, think that one single producer, would be able to meet local demand, as much as that local or private sector effort is strategically required right now and requires a lot of support to scale.
Okay, so now with that is to say that Nigeria might need to import fuel. And with this 15% tariff now, the importers have cried out that could take the fuel price well above 1,000. And with what we've experienced last year / this year, the fuel prices have just been fluctuating. I think about 3 months ago, it was about 800 and something. Currently, at AP, it is 925. Other filling stations, you could also get it for 920. There are just several prices going on based on, the amount of money that they buy. So if this 15% tariff is implemented, importers are saying that it could take the fuel price above 1,000 naira, which will further cause inflation. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, there is no gainsaying about it. It's definitely going to impact the local economy in terms of prices of fuel. And I say that confidently from two streams. Number one, the fact that we don't even know what local demand is, in quote. So it's way much more than what we can supply, what Dangote can supply in the real sense of things. So now putting a tariff on that will impact on, imported fuel, which would mean shortage or likely scarcity or artificial scarcity, of that. So meaning those who even have it might want to hold it so that they can sell at a higher price much later. So the natural order of tariff impact on imported goods will kick in, which is increased prices. All right, and businesses will suffer it, households will suffer it, and Nigeria has not really done a good job when it comes to cushioning the impact of such policies. We roll out the policies first before we think of cushioning the impact. We need to create the structures to manage the impact before you roll out policies. On the second leg of things, aside the natural order of price increase and penetration into the economy, it's also the artificial order. The Nigerian economy significantly is a human behavior thing. We're a largely speculative economy. All right, we're largely speculative consumers and speculative producers. And that's because you don't have a strong strategic regulatory policy of pricing in place. So what happens is people who currently have the product, who are not actually importing the product at the time of the increase in tariff, will hold on to the product so that when prices begin to increase, they can then gain the market by selling at a higher price for product they already have. All right. So and there's also a third level. Those who might not know exactly how the market will respond, how the market will evolve, how the value chain players will respond, will further hold it to see what will happen in the future. So there could be layers of artificial scarcity in code. Not necessarily that fuel won't be available. It will be available at different prices and at different points in times and at different consumer touch points. And that's what really happens. So you're dealing with the blend of yes, a good, quote unquote, a good economic policy when you think about it from an intention standpoint, but it could be, I strongly think that it could be, it's going to be incorrectly or inaccurately rolled out, and that could then impact roller coaster when it comes to natural order of pricing, first level artificial order of pricing, and second level artificial order of pricing. And when that happens, what does that mean? It means the basket of tomato that is constantly changing will keep changing. It means that the price of bread will change. It means that the price of egg might go up. It means that the cost of transportation, and do not forget this, if you look at the construct of the Nigerian inflation numbers, particularly where the inflationary pressure kicks in the most, it's on the basic necessities, housing, transportation, food, and all of that. And these are strong levelers that are strongly dependent on energy, our current energy structure. And I've always held a position in the last 5 years from my work as an economist in order to say that if 50% of our power challenges are fixed, Nigerians will depend less on fuel. So the reason why we have an increased dependency on fuel is because we have strong, serious power problems. So if you solve the power problems by 50% now, because I don't think it can be solved 100% time soon, if you solve it by 50% at least, it means that there will be a significant drop in demand for fuel. And when you begin to look at it from that context, we're able to measure up and manage the dynamics of and international engagement and even local refinery when it comes to the impact on prices.
All right. Now, a lot of people would say that without this 15% tariff, that the imported fuel will be cheaper than the locally refined fuel, the Dangote refinery, that Dangote doesn't stand a chance. Now, for the end consumer would always want to have cheaper price, because then the inflation goes down and the economy is running better. But in long term, it doesn't do the country well. So what do you make of why first of all, why would imported fuel be cheaper than what we locally refine here? And what do you make of what's the long-term impact if we're having cheaper imported fuel as opposed to, consuming the locally produced products?
So there are many reasons why the locally produced products are expensive. Just like saying why is a basket of tomato expensive when we produce a lot of it. There are many value chain reasons why, there are policy reasons why, there are regulatory reasons, there are supply chain, very deeper reasons that time will not give us the opportunity to go into now. But to focus very much closely on the economics of the now and the future, I strongly believe and I think that introducing policies to cut down on imported products is the way forward. So in that context, in the context of introducing policies to support local content, in quotes, in this case now, is actually the way forward. But then it only can succeed, which is where there's some of mismatch here. It only can succeed if you have the right infrastructure, the right regulatory practices, the right standardization and governance of the sector in place. And secondly, we're closing the gap between between raw material generation, processing, and and ensuring that there's availability in quantity and quality of the finished product that needs to get to the consumer. All right. So until we can build around those local economics effectively and efficiently for a long period of time, we might not be able to significantly compete with imported. So what we're trying to do is to fix that without having to fix the structural, enablers around this local content. It's a good policy, by the way, but it's just the way in which it's been deployed. We're trying to reach 100 without starting from point 1 or point 10.
Yeah. What do you make of the timing? What do you make of the timing? Because we are currently in a period where our economy seems like it's recovering. I mean, the dollar went from 1,900, now it's about 1,400 plus, significantly because of the local production that's began to happen with the Dangote refinery. With Trump's tweets about what's happening in the north, the Nigerian stock market lost trillions of naira. And now if we have this 15% tariff and then for some reason the inflation goes up, what do you think will happen to our economy, based on the timing of everything happening all at once and where we are currently and even Nigeria's international image currently? What do you make of the timing?
I mean, to start with, whilst I think the policy is not too bad, like I mentioned, it's how it's been rolled out that's the main issue. I think the timing is a bit of a sensitive one, and in all honesty, might not necessarily be the best of times to roll out such policy in as much as the policy is really required and really important right now in the Nigerian economy and our national history. So it's a good time, but it's also a bad time, so to say. Now, it's a bad time because of the many reasons you outlined. But much more important is the fact that if you think about what Trump had done the last 1 year, it's been the use of tariffs as economic weaponry, as economic weapon to establish dominance and all that. And these are the times we live in. We live in times where geopolitics now intersects with geoeconomics. And when he rolled out those tariffs he rolled out last year, what we realized that the global order of change of trade rather began to shift, and then nations started putting more restrictions on who they want to trade with and who would be on the side of the quote unquote geopolitical divide. So now that hasn't completely fizzled out, and now with a lot of pressure and focus on the north and Nigerian economy in its entirety, I do not think it's really the best of times, because again, many of these countries are importing from have trade policies. You don't want them to put up restrictions that may be a bit, So again, whilst the policy is important for Nigeria, it's now a timing issue. I think it's the best of timing. I think we could have done more in terms of phasing the delivery or the introduction of that policy.
Yeah. So finally, what role should regulation play to ensure competition, and let's not have monopoly or artificial scarcity? What role should regulation play here?
Well, there's the ideal case of what regulation should do. But in many emerging and developing markets, it's not usually the case because, I mean, the order of how the regulatory system is set up itself is slightly dysfunctioned, and in its nature of dysfunctionality, you can't necessarily govern or set the price or manage market behavior or determine market outcomes in itself. Hence why these policies tend to impact on the consumer really fast, because there are no regulatory mechanisms that are cushioning the effect. But in the ideal case, the regulator should be eyes ball on the market globally, eyes ball on what it means for other trade partners if we increase tariff, what it means for our local refineries system, what it means for other players who might have the capacity to also play in the refinery space as private sector to also support more players. I don't think it should be a monopoly market, in as much as we need to support private sector players who are already in there, like Dangote, or who are already currently seeking to play in there. So it's a good policy, but I don't think, and also our regulatory system is not well, aside from structure, the competence, the cultural competence to manage the complexity of Nigerian economy and how prices easily trickle down on consumers. I don't really think that we have the capacity. So it's a lot of capacity building, it's a lot of governance, enablement and capacity building in that context. And it's also a lot of watchdogging and paying attention to what's happening globally, and even some form of lobbying. How do you lobby with nations that you used to import from? What does that mean for your trade relations? What does that mean in the growing context of the geopolitical crisis and geoeconomic instability and all of that? What does that mean in the larger scheme of things? The regulatory practices should be informing or advising the executive, government, and council a bit more closely on what the policy. Hence, why I think that policies like that, in as much as they're important and necessary, should be trickled down in terms of stages of delivery, stages of impact, stages of how they're introduced into the economy. How do we manage the excesses? The fact that we don't have the structural enablers, to cater for the common man who would feel the brunt the most, the MSM who will feel the brunt the most. All right, how do we manage them in the face of this policy that's really, really crucial to support local refinery? How do we begin to invest in local refinery production? How do we incentivize more private sector to go in? So these are the big questions. Regulation, but capacity is a big issue.
Gospel, I know there's so much to say on this particular topic, and so it seems like you're a bit on the divide in the sense that it's a good policy, but also you do not trust how it is being rolled out and the impact.
Yeah, which is where the challenge is.
I get it.
Where the challenge is.
But we can only wish for the best, and of course, the people that are making these policies are currently watching. Thank you so much for coming on to the program, Gospel, and we wish you the very best. All right, Robbie Mind continues. When we come back, we'll be having a celebrity interview, and I'll reveal my guest very soon. Stay with us.
Don't just stand there teasing me. Now it's time to show it.
Welcome back. This is Robbie Minds. Before we went on the break, we were discussing the Nigerian economy and the impact of the 15% tariff on imported petroleum. It hasn't been implemented yet, but of course we need to look at what it would do to the economy when it's eventually implemented. And right now, let's talk about one of the most successful parts of the economy, which is entertainment. And with me in the studio, I have one of Africa's most celebrated disc jockeys, DJ Neptune. Now, from early days of hustling with mixtapes to creating chart-topping hits that have defined Afrobeat's global sound, Neptune's journey is one of consistency, reinvention, and quiet influence. Very heavy on the quiet influence because people don't know how big you are sometimes. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, bro.
So good to see you. I've lost count of the amount of important gigs I've seen you play at, both locally, globally. How often are you even in Nigeria these days?
Oh man, it's crazy to be funny enough, because I was just having a conversation with someone like last week, and like in a month, maybe like less than a week. In a month, you're in Nigeria less than a week. Yeah. It's crazy. I know. But I mean, I'm grateful to God. It's what we asked for, so.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the implication of what you just said, on the economy. But let's talk about you.
Okay.
For the young person watching out there that is really struggling to find his or her feet in the world of entertainment, I'm sure they'll be inspired by your story. Who is DJ Neptune? Where did you come from? How did DJ Neptune become? Just share a bit of how you discovered your journey.
I mean, for me, like growing up, music has always been something I wanted to do, like the entertainment space, regardless of not even figuring out if it was going to be DJing or making music or whatnot, but the passion was there, which was the main important drive, and then staying focused. It wasn't easy because my folks then didn't understand what I was trying to do, so I just had to stay true to myself, left my comfort zone for like 2 years, but while I was out there, I kept on reminding myself, you cannot afford to fail, so it was the passion and staying focused. And I'm grateful to God, my career started, did radio, was NATO's his band DJ, got to travel around the world, still doing what I love to do. And now it's just like I'm having fun, I'm being paid. You just enjoy myself. Yeah.
You've worked with some of the biggest names in Afrobeats, and do you sometimes feel like you don't get enough credit, or do you think you get enough credit?
So to me, like, when people talk about credit, I just do what I have to do, because I'm just here to contribute my own quota to the industry with the talent that God has blessed me with, so I'm not really looking for that much justification in terms of achievement. For me, being out there, performing, touching lives, seeing people go home happy, people listen to my music, they connect with my sound and what I'm trying to do, that alone is enough achievement, and that makes me fulfilled. I mean, yeah, gotten a couple of accolades to that, grateful to God. And I'm just doing me, man.
Okay. Now, Afrobeat has seen this huge mileage globally. Everybody wants a piece of Afrobeat, and we've seen institutions, the international record labels, invest heavily in Afrobeat.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing in terms of ownership? As an industry, are we getting enough of the bread? So let's say, for example, Wizkid, who is signed to a couple of international record labels, including his own label.
Yeah.
We don't know how many percent he owns of whatever he makes. So let's say he makes $1 billion. What do you think is his typical take-home? And what is the implication for the African creative economy?
So in terms of his take-home, that would determine on the contract they have and how good his lawyers were able to bargain on his behalf, because at the end of the day, it's music business. You know, the international labels are pumping in money for marketing, for production, and then all of that has to be recouped, whether you like it or not. You know, and that's where the conversation of co-ownership of masters comes in, because it's business at the end of the day. Say in the next 10, 15 years, the song might pop up, and then it becomes a thing. That's part of the interest for the label, you know. But what I would say in all of this conversation is, it is sweet, you know, when you get those advance, you know, but just know that you have to work for it. It's not free money, you know. So that brings me to, we as African creative, we need to start thinking towards the direction of owning our own, you know, owning our own streaming platforms, because we have the numbers. I mean, check out our population, over 250 million. All a DJ Neptune needs to sustain me for the rest of my career is probably just 4 to 5% of that population constantly streaming my music, coming to my shows. I'm made for life, you know. So if we understand that we have this power, we need to come together as one. What I don't like is everyone is trying to do this, I'm doing it on my own, which is cool, but you need to understand that collaboration right now is the new gold. When we go into the room as one voice, it makes the conversation more interesting and more beneficiary to we the creatives.
Well said, well said. So there's also a hot topic that is out there where a lot of people are complaining that they can no longer afford big artists in Nigeria because of their fees.
That's why you have us. They were not that expensive.
That's where DJs come in, right?
We are not that expensive.
You know,
we'll give you varieties and you go home happy.
Right. But I mean, people talk about the big four. To call a Burna Boy now, to call a Wizkid, Davido, and would like to include Rema because he's also killing it. It's a lot of money, and a lot of show promoters can no longer afford to get them to have shows. Now, Davido has now said, you know what, I'm going to put in my own money, and I'm going to do shows out of my own pockets all across Nigeria to sort of give back. And a lot of people applauded that move. Now, what do you make of what Davido did? One, and then are we to blame the Wizkids or the Burners for not doing some sort of homecoming concerts?
The honest truth is, music business is expensive. You need to understand that. But then again, as an individual, you don't want to stay too disconnected from your roots, because either you like it or not, that's where you germinated from. So you always have to put that into consideration. But with that being said, music business is not small money. So by the time they sit down and factor all of these expenses that have gone in through, I mean, you have to make the money back. You're thinking of how to make the money back. And in the process of doing that, globally, things are expensive now. Yeah, there's this economic meltdown, but it is what it is. What you would achieve with $500 5 years ago, that same $500 can't give that to you right now. So you have to up your budget, and that's where the conversation comes in. It hurts, to be honest, but as an artist, if you've gotten to a level whereby you know you have the power to put your own shows together, it's advisable to do, because at the end of the day, the people who are consuming your music, they also want to be able to connect with you with live shows. It goes beyond the music. And I will applaud Davido for that bold step. And then I would also want to use this opportunity to seek the government's support, because if we have standard venues all around the country with good security, it creates jobs for everybody, you know, down to the cleaner, to the last mile officer who is going to be there, and then revenue for everyone involved, you know. So there's a lot of money to be made in business, you know. Like, yeah, we have the crude oil, we have other natural resources, but trust me, entertainment is not something to be slept on. So kudos to David for that. Hopefully, some of his colleagues would follow that footsteps. Everyone's got their own destiny at the end of the day, but that's something really, really commendable.
All right, let's talk about the Grammy nominations and the Grammy Awards. We have our people being nominated again from Davido to Ira Star, you know, to Wizkid as well. I think, yeah,
Burna Boy. I don't think Wiz got a nomination.
No, he got via feature.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yeah,
okay,
he got via feature. I think it's Gimme That. Ira Star featuring Wizkid. You know, that also got, you know, a nomination, and of course Tyler is there. Now, we've had situations whereby Tyler is constantly being nominated in the Afrobeat category and ends up cutting it home, and then she comes and says, I'm not an Afrobeat artist, I'm a piano artist.
I was somewhere where someone was saying, it seemed like Tyler is that industry seed that was planted amongst the Afrobeat artists just to keep. I mean,
because when I saw Tyler, I'm like, oh no, oh no. I know the West love Tyler.
But something I would say is, at the end of the day, it's an award show that's been put together by people. You get me? You know, that doesn't really, to me, it doesn't, I don't seek validation of that. It's cool to be a Grammy winner. I would love to be a Grammy winner if I get the opportunity, you know, but I would just say for the fact that you're being nominated in that category, you're already doing well, you know, regardless of whoever goes back home with the awards. I mean, the most important thing is it's coming to Africa. So let's stop discriminating. Oh, you're an Amapiano artist, you're an Afrobeat artist. It is coming to Africa at the end of the day.
Right.
The world, I mean, it's our turn. The spotlight is on us. So let's just go as a unified figure, and whoever wins, congratulations.
Amazing. So, DJ Neptune, I consider you an OG, but at the same time, you are so active that I can't even call you an OG.
I'm not an OG.
You know, I can't even, sometimes I want to call you a veteran, but I'm like, no, but you're still killing it. You're still topping charts. You're still doing #1s.
Yeah.
First of all, how do you do it? Tell me about how you decide who to collaborate with, and then finally let's talk about your album. So let's match all this.
How do I do it? I mean, it's the passion, to be honest. For me, I'm still as hungry as when I started DJing the very first day, you know, and the goal is to be celebrated as a global DJ from Africa, West Africa, Nigeria to be precise, you know. And touching about how I put my collaborations together, it's very important for me that the end product is solid, regardless of who I am working with, be it a young artist or one of the big fours, you know. So that greatness influence needs to be felt on the track. So for me, when I'm collaborating, I just keep my mind open and let the spirit lead, because music is spiritual. You be honest, if you don't have it, you don't have it. If it's not there, you can't force it. But when it embraces you, the output is always solid, you know. So for me, I take my time with my collaboration, and like my recently album that just dropped, Greatness 4, if you go on there, it's literally new artists, and I love the reception because people are now like, yeah, we need more voice. Yeah, these talents are there, but they're just looking for the platform. You know, for me right now, I'm at the level whereby it's time to give back. It's time to be part of people's story, and that's why I'm building all these beautiful collaborations together.
Amazing, and that's one of your videos currently playing.
Oh yeah, Dance No Dance with Swavy and DJ Neptune of Greatness 4 album. You should go stream that album if you haven't. Trust me, it's packed.
And where can we stream these?
It's available on all platforms: Spotify, Apple, Deezer, YouTube, whatever platform you use in consuming music legally. Please, legally. You get me? Because it's beautiful. It costs a lot of money, you know. So we don't want to. I don't want to do all of this and then I pack my bag and I go back to the village.
I know.
You know. So I mean, it's available. Just enjoy it and share with your friends.
Is it that people cannot come together and try to bring down these illegal piracy sites? You know, because I know that some of these illegal piracy sites have even built a brand that artists now pay them to put their songs on those sites.
It's very sad. It's very sad. But I mean, hopefully with time, all of this will be eradicated. Yeah, that's where we need the government to come in, because if the penalties are there, and you know for a fact that if you do this, you're going to face the law, you would want to do it the right way, because doing it the right way, you also make money as well.
Right.
You know, but just encourage people to do the right things.
Okay, in a couple of days, we'll be singing Dirty December.
Yes.
And it's going to be a very tough period for DJs, artists, in fact, the entertainment ecosystem.
Well, tough in a good way.
Tough in a good way.
Yeah.
Also, as of last year, it generated so much money for the government that even the Honorable Minister of Culture, Arts, Tourism and the Creative Economy, Honorable Hannatu Musawa, has said that the government is establishing a Dirty December presidential task force.
Yeah, I saw that.
What do you make of that?
I don't know. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is the government is trying to implement, I mean, let's just be sure that it's something that is going to be easy on the people. You know, it's going to make the whole Dirty December experience a beautiful one. I mean, I already love like what the aviation sector has done at our airports. When you're coming in right now, you just go and scan your passports. It's seamless. That's cool. Kudos to them, because if people are flocking into the country, you want to welcome them in a very easy, respectful manner. You don't want altercations and all of that, you know. So that's beautiful. We need more initiatives like this, because Nigeria is beautiful. Africa is beautiful. The world wants to come. And then insecurity as well, please. Because I miss those days when I'm in Uyo and then I'm being told you're going to perform in Calabar that same night, and I'm not scared to go from Uyo to Calabar. But now, everyone's scared because you don't want to get on the road and be caught unawares, you know. So insecurity, please, the government needs to tackle all of that. And with all these things being put together, trust me, we all together would generate lots of money from entertainment.
Okay, the funny thing is that I think you've already answered the next question that I wanted to ask you, but if you could just maybe throw more lights, and that leads me to, you've played all over the world and you've seen the structure and you've seen what exists in other economies. You just mentioned that the Nigerian government should look into insecurity. So beyond insecurity and all of this physical infrastructure challenges that we're facing, what else do you think we can do, like suggestions to the government, so that the creative economy can even bring in more revenue for the country and help the GDP at large? I
mean, it's simple. Like I already mentioned it. Put all these things together: insecurity, proper venues. When I say proper venues, I'm not saying, I don't want to mention name, proper actual venues with good exit in case of, I mean, you never could tell.
Yes.
You know, good road network. This just creates job opportunity for everybody from the bottom all the way to the top. You know, and then you can tax these people. I mean, if all these things are there, why wouldn't we want to gladly pay our tax? Because we know that's what is going to keep maintaining all these infrastructures. You know, and then, I mean, have very strong penalties. If you do the wrong thing, you get penalized and you face the law. You know, with all of this together, we would have a beautiful environment and the entertainment will strive well.
DJ Neptune, greatness.
Thank you.
Greatness for such a fantastic body of work.
Thank you so much.
And I'm incredibly proud of your growth.
Thank you.
I'm saying it like I saw you when you started. I was not there. I was still a baby. You're an OG. Yeah, but thank you so much for coming on to Robin Minds, and we wish you all the very best. And that's all we have for you on this particular edition of Robin Minds. My name is Hero Daniels. Until I catch you next time, please stay safe.